So I'm gonna just plug in hip hop. This is just like before. We're just picking something we like. So I'm plugging in hip hop. What I want right now is not drums. So right, I'm gonna make my own drums. So I'm gonna pick out something that's like I don't want bass either. I'm thinking like piano or a synthesizer or a guitar or something like that. So I'm just going through here. Let's actually do this. Let's do synth. See if we can find anything cool. Yeah, I like that. That's kind of a similar vibe to what we were just listening to. So let's go ahead and toss that in. Notice when I drag that in, it automatically populated a scale and key. C minor is the scale and key. C is the key. Minor is the scale. And it also gave me a tempo, which is 140. I keep saying this over and over again because I feel like I need to, but 140 is actually incorrect. This is at 70. This is called double time. That's not going to matter too much, but it's going to change things just a little bit. Okay, so I got my loop, and this is how I would recommend that you guys start, is just start with a loop, whatever it is, even if you don't end up keeping it, but start with a loop so you have something to program your drums to, so you know that they're sounding good, okay? So I'm going to do add new track now. So this is getting into the new stuff. I'm going to pick drum and beats. And it's going to automatically come up with this drum kit called Vanilla, and Vanilla is okay. It's not my favorite drum kit that's in Sountrap, but it's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and change it. I'm gonna do that by clicking right here where it says Machines Vanilla, and I'm gonna come down to probably just something I know that I like. For example, I know that I like the Brampton kit. I like the Milky one too. That one's kind of good for yeah, that one, the Milky kit's kind of good for like R&B type stuff if that's where you're looking. But I'm gonna go ahead and grab Brampton because I know I like it. But you could absolutely listen to all of these and pick out one that speaks to you for the style of music that you want to do. So I'm picking Brampton. I'm closing that out. Before I go any further, I need to make myself a 1-bar loop. Right? We talked about what a bar or a measure is. It's a 4 count, right? So let me play this back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so that was 1 bar right there. So I'm going to click in here, and it's actually going to make me a half a bar loop, and that's because we're at double time here. Don't worry about that too much, except for that I do actually want to extend this out. On the bottom right-hand corner, I want to change the length of it. It's a half a bar there. I want to make it a full bar. I'm going to drag it right there. And it's important that it's exactly 2 bars or exactly 1 bar, right? So it can't be here. That's not going to work. It can't be here. If I do that, it's going to loop incorrectly and it's going to get off beat. So it has to go right there, right? And that way it loops at the exact same time that my melody does right here, okay? And these little points, they tell you when it's looping. So now I can drag that out at the top right-hand corner. So now I have a 1-bar loop, but it loops 4 times. At this point, I'm going to hit edit notes, and it's going to bring me here. So there's sort of 3 views when you're looking at this. When you're looking at any instrument or any track, I can look at instrument, okay, which is like that lets me pick the sounds that I'm using. I can look at patterns. Patterns is a way to program drums, but I wouldn't recommend it. It should work, but it doesn't work great. So we're actually going to go over here to piano roll, which maybe looks a little bit more complicated, but that's okay. It's going to allow us to do stuff better than if we were in patterns. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in because I want to look just at this bar, right? Remember, that bar is just going to repeat 4 times. So I don't really care what's happening over here because it's just going to be the same as what's happening here. So I want to look at just this first bar for starters. And now I'm ready to start programming my drums. So I have a lot of drums to choose from in here. In fact, I have this many, all these different sounds, okay? But where I want to start is with the kick drum. And a kick drum is another way to say a bass drum, okay? So that's a kick drum. That's a kick drum. Those are all kick drums. They're just getting lower in pitch, okay? But I want to start with my kick drum. Let me pull up a picture so you can see a real kick drum. That might just help you. So a real kick drum looks like this, like one that's part of a drum kit. Looks like that. It's the big bass drum. They use a kick drum in just about every style of music, right? So all the music that you listen to, almost all of it probably contains a kick drum. It shows up in all sorts of different Mexican music. It shows up in American pop music and hip hop music and R&B and EDM, right? Almost everything contains a kick because that really keeps that creates that pulse that keeps the rhythm for us. So we're going to start with a kick. And I'm going to put that kick right here. So I just double clicked, right? Let me show you that one more time. All I did was double click where I knew there was a kick drum, okay? If I put it up here, I'm going to get a different sound. I want it here, okay? That's the kick drum, right? And I want it to show up on the 1. And here's what I mean by that. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? All right, so that kick shows up on the 1. I also want it to show up on the 2, or excuse me, on the 3. Don't listen to me. I want it on the 1 and the 3. So let's find where the 3 is. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So they're evenly spaced. All right. I got a kick on the 1 and a kick on the 3, and that sounds like this. All right. So that's good enough for my kick drum for now. I know it sounds simple. It is simple, but we can come back and adjust that and add more kicks as we want to add flavor. But for now, I just want it on the 1 and the 3. The next thing I want to add is a snare. And a snare drum, I've showed you one of these in person before. I just want to check. Yeah, okay. I showed you one of these in person before. They look like this. It is kind of the second most important drum after the kick drum. It shows up again in all types of different music. It's very, very common, and it's a sound that you're going to recognize. I will say, though, a clap, right, or a snap, it's a terrible snap, those provide the same sort of purpose as a snare drum does. Those are all interchangeable. So if you want to use a clap instead of a snare, it's going to perform the same function. But this is what a snare drum looks like, and here's what one sounds like. Let's close that up. Stop confusing myself. Okay. That's a snare drum right there. That's a snare drum. That's a snare drum. That's a snare. That's a snare. Okay, that's a hi-hat. We'll get into those in a second. More hi-hats here. That's back to a snare drum. It's a little bit more clappy. Okay. And then we're getting into some what we call perks or percussion. Okay. Let's do this one. Okay. So I'm going to use that as my snare drum. I could have used any of those other sounds, but I want this one for now. And I want to put that on the 2 and on the 4. So 1, 2. Okay. So let's find where that was. Okay. It's easy to get it in the wrong place. Like I could have accidentally put it there, right? But you can just move it on up wherever it needs to go, wherever you want. Okay, so I want it there. So that's the 2. So now I got, and there's the 4. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope you're hearing that sort of start to sound like a song. Like your brain, because of the music that you listen to, it expects your snares to be there, right? That sounds right to you, or I think it probably does anyways, okay? Because so much music that we listen to contains snares right there, all right? So let's get into our hi-hat. So here's what a hi-hat looks like. It's a type of cymbal. Again, really, really common, really, really important. And it's going to be played faster than either of those other 2 things, right? And I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to find ourselves a hi-hat. I want this one, okay? Really fast, really clicky. And if I decide to go trappy and do some fast hi-hats like this, like that, right? It's going to work, right? Because it's fast and small, okay? So I'm going to add this, and I want to do this on 8th notes for now. So I'm going to add a note right there, then another note here, and I'm going to get 8 of them in here total. So this is 1 bar, and I'm doing 8 hi-hats total. So let's hear how this sounds. Right? Starting to sound like a song. At least it does to me, right? Even though that this was really formulaic and simple, even though I told you exactly where to put everything, And by the way, if you want to take a picture of the screen, by all means, right? That might help you later. But you're going to put kicks on the 1 and the 3 and snares on the 2 and the 4. That's going to be a requirement, right? Usually I'll let you do, when you're writing stuff, I'll let you do whatever you want, but I want those there. And you can add more, you can add kicks and snares elsewhere as well, and you can add different drums, and you can get really creative. I want you to do that. But underneath all of that, I want this skeleton: kick, snare, kick, snare. And that's written out in Schoology, and I'll keep reminding you of that as well. While we're here, because we're actually getting close to me turning you loose to get some stuff started, I want to show you how we could add a little bit more flavor to this, because what we have is working, but it's also just a little bit boring, right? I haven't added too much flavor to it yet, so I want to see if I can add some stuff in there to get that. And I also want to check and make sure I'm remembering to tell you everything I wanted to tell you. It is not Wednesday, is it? It's Thursday. Okay. So thinking about tempo, there we go. I wanted to talk about that. And what is a metronome? Okay. And then here's your first pattern: kicks on the 1 and the 3, snares on the 2 and the 4, hi-hats on every 8th note. So you can look that up if you forgot. All right. And I'm also going to make this video available if I go back and watch it and it's not too cringy. So let's add a little bit of flavor, then let's talk tempo and metronomes, and then let's kick you loose to do some work. So I have this really basic drum kit going, okay, and it's working, drum pattern. But let's make it a little bit trappy. And to do that, I'm actually going to add some kind of secondary snares in here. So I'm doing this a little bit faster because this is not a requirement, right? Like this is just like my flavor. So now I'm just freestyling whatever's coming into my head, right? And I want some faster hi-hats here. So I'm gonna actually make some of these 16th notes. So I'm filling in these gaps. This will be a lot of trial and error, like everything is in this class. You won't just drop something and have it be perfect. That's not how this works. And now I'm going to go really fast, so I have to shorten these notes in order to get these fast hi-hats that I want. But I'm going to do, you've heard this before, I'm calling this a hi-hat roll, right, where it's just going really fast for a sec. Notice I'm zooming in and zooming out a lot. You have to do that. And now it's starting to sound a little bit more flavorful. My skeleton is still under there, right? I've still got that kick snare thing happen. It's still 100% there, and you can listen for it and you'll hear it. I'm just adding some stuff around it. Okay, I'm going to call that good for now. I do want to talk about metronomes, and I want to talk about tempo. So you know what tempo is because you've taken a quiz on it. You know it's just how fast or slow something sounds, but be aware of it in your projects. This is set to 140. Again, that's double time. That's not real, but let's slow that down to 120, okay, and see how that sounds. Changes the feel, changes the vibe. Let's speed it up to 160. See how that feels. Definitely not what I want, but you might, you know, and again, it's kind of up to you. I'm going to go to 150. I think that's going to be a good spot. No, sorry, I want to go to 130. A little bit slower than where I started. Okay, so click this, type it in, hit confirm. You're good to go. that'll work for me for right now. The metronome is the last thing I wanted to tell you about. You turn the metronome on and off right here. It's spelled this way. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's M-E-T-R-O-N-O-M-E, metronome, all right? And all it is a click on the beat, right? So let's turn both of these off. So I'm going to mute both channels. I'm going to turn on the metronome, and I hope you can hear that, okay? All that does is help me keep time. You can turn it on and off, or if it's useful for you, right? But it's just going to play a pulse, a little click at 130 beats per minute. That's it. I think, guys, that's most of what I wanted to talk about. I appreciate you guys listening. I took up a lot of our class time, so I'm hoping it was worth it.